Welcome everyone to episode 15 of Just Joshing. And no, this is not a mistake. This is not a stop in the watch. This is about traveling back in time. We're doing a little time traveling this episode. You see, I've been doing a backlog of all my podcasts for the last little bit. There's currently 120 podcasts up on YouTube as we speak right now. And you can listen to all. There's some great guests up there. There's 120 episodes to listen to, and just some really fascinating stuff, start to finish. I'm proud of every single one of my conversations, just about anyway. And yeah, it's really cool. But when I was uploading for episode 15, I was putting episode 15 up. I realized that my episode 15 was something completely different than what it was. What this should be. It kind of was a State of the Union address with my health, because there was a period really early on in the podcast where I got really sick with something, and I couldn't do these episodes with the regularity I wanted to. I couldn't go out and do interviews. I was fighting a very, very unique infection. But I didn't want to put that up as a backlog. I thought, why not make episode 15 like a State of the Union address, but it's also a story and something that kind of gravitate, like talk about my year, about how awesome it has been since I fixed my teeth. I thought that'd be a really cool thing, and talk about the future and what's happening right now. That's what this episode's going to be. So don't worry, if you guys don't want to listen to me talking to a guest, that'll be literally next episode. I'm back to guests. I have plenty of episodes in the can. Don't worry about that. But I thought today that episode 15 should be kind of like where I've been since I fixed the teeth. And that's where we're going to start, is like, I fixed my teeth in January, thanks to everybody that donated to the GoFundMe. It went to them. They treated me good. The dentists in Mexico are incredibly efficient. The ones I dealt with anyway, they were super nice. They were super professional. They had a plan for me from implants all the way up. The money for implants was a lot more than I anticipated, but they were still able to help me. They were still able to restore my smile, and they did it inside of 3 days. It was incredible. It was a fun. It was a good experience. And my teeth aren't done by any stretch of the imagination. They're done. My smile's fixed for now, but down the road, I definitely am going to be doing more. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's definitely something I want to do within the next couple of years. We'll see how things kind of pan out. And last year, I actually was wondering if people were really paying attention to the show at around March or April. And then in May, I get an Aurora nomination, and it was like, wow, very cool. Maybe June. Maybe it was June. Somewhere in that vicinity anyway. And yeah, it was incredible to me that I got something like this the way I did. And I won. And ever since I've won, some really cool doors have opened. So I'm going to talk about a few of those real quick, and then we're going to get into today. For starters, I've been able to talk to some really, really cool guests. Spider Robinson's been a guest on the show. That was really, really fun to do. The opportunity to do something like that is incredible to me. And it just kind of, I stumbled into it like much everything else I've done in my life. It's been a happy accident. I was at VCon getting my pin for the Aurora when this guy shows up, and it's Spider Robinson. It's like, whoa, this is Spider Robinson. It's cool. So I meet him as I'm getting pinned. He's getting pinned too. It's just like, okay, that's surreal. It's really surreal. I get to go to a concert with the Beatles, and it's this really cool dude, very fun guy. I was supposed to interview another author that weekend, and he kind of blew me off. It's okay, happens. But I'm about to walk, and I see this guy, Spider, looking for directions, basically coming from where I was coming from, like where I come from to come to the con. So I give him directions, and I get this opportunity, and suddenly I'm talking to Spider Robinson a few weeks later, and that's just such a surreal experience right there. That led to some open doors on Spec. I'm going to be publishing on Spec for the first time this year, which is, I think, a really cool thing. So because of that interview, and that's an awesome, like, that's a I think, a real big tip to my cap. And then, the other thing that happened too is my viewership's gone up. My viewership is a lot more steady now than it's ever been. It's kind of normalized a little bit in this last little bit, but it's like anything else. As things change, now I'm going up, then down, up and down. Some weeks I get 100 plays, downloads. Other weeks I get 400 plays, downloads. I want to try to keep it going upward. I think there's room for this podcast to keep expanding, and that's what I'm doing. And which leads me to now, today. What am I doing? So what I'm doing is, this podcast is in March 1st, 2019, will be a Patreon-supported podcast. I've been prepping to do this for a bit. Actually, the truth of the matter is, for the last couple months, I've been making some lifestyle changes too. My day job is now part-time. I'm no longer there in a full-time capacity, and God willing, I'll never ever have to do that again. And I feel like that's actually a legitimate possibility, not just because of the Patreon, just because, again, I just feel like other doors are opening and other possibilities are happening, and this has been a really cool point in my life, for the most part. Anyway, so the Patreon's coming up. So what is the Patreon going to do for the podcast that, that I haven't done already? And I think I want to talk about is, I want to accentuate the podcast, what it does. I love supporting people doing amazing things. I love that I have been a Canadian platform for this for the last 235 episodes. I've met some amazing talents on all levels. It doesn't matter if they're beginning or if they're masters or anything in between. I've, by and large, loved each and every guest that's come in here. Right? Even the shows that weren't, in my opinion, that good, they were still cool people. For the most part, anyway. And honestly, I mean, I've been fortunate. I mean, I haven't even talked about Sweet and Sultry Summer, how cool an experience that was last year. I've met all many of these different people in so many different communities. To me, it has been nothing short of an incredible journey, and I want to keep going with it. So what the Patreon's going to do is, it's going to do two things. It's going to keep building on what's already here in terms of the podcast, which is, I want to keep promoting other people and what they're doing. So the podcast will still air as normal, especially in March. The first month is going to feel almost like business as usual, minus a couple small changes, which you'll notice starting next episode. One among them will be the fact that I have a sponsor. I'm going to be advertising a sponsor starting next episode. I'm going to be previewing that, and I'll be talking about what they're going to allow me to give away next episode, which is really cool. Outside of that, though, I'm going to let the audience ask questions. They're going to get advanced episodes. Like, they're going to get the episodes all in advance. They're going to get bonus content, like stuff I haven't aired on the podcast. They're going to get like exclusives. I have some really cool stuff, like extended conversations with people like Kevin Weir. A little bit more from Robert Angus, J.M. Dover, for starters. But I'm also eventually going to be doing more exclusive Patreon-only podcasts, which are going to be, hopefully, slightly different formats than what I normally do. That doesn't mean you won't still see, again, the regular podcast will still air as normal. But the Patreon one is going to be hopefully something a little extra for anyone that wants to donate and help. And I promise to do that. It's going to be blogs about, building success, interviews, how I interview people, the process I go with that, why I interview some of the people I do. I'm going to be talking about the podcast on various platforms, what I'm learning, what I'm struggling with. It's going to be a lot more detailed about what I do. And it's going to be a lot of fun to explain the business that way and build upon what I've already done with everybody else, which is build them. And I'm really looking forward to doing that. That's half of the equation. The other half is my writing. And so I think the biggest lesson the podcast has taught me about my writing is this dedication. I I'm not saying I never not write. I'm always doing something creative, like no matter what. But there are some, again, the podcast becoming the animal it has become definitely takes up more of my creative time than my writing does. And I'm hoping to balance that out. And that's the other part of the Patreon is it's going to be focusing on my writing career. I'm going to be, like I said, I have 3 books coming out this year. A epic poem, which is a prologue to something much bigger. Number 1. Number 2, I've got my first novel coming out. My first official novel is going to be coming out, and I'm really stoked about that. And number 3, I'm going to be doing my first ever graphic novel, like my first Dr. Seussian graphic novel, I should say. And I'm really excited for all 3 projects. I'm going to talk about all 3 of them and kind of where I'm going and where this all ties together. So the first project is Alice Zero. Colleen Anderson asked me about 2 years ago to do an epic poem for her collection, Alice Unbound, and she wanted a Lewis Carroll inspired poem about me, and I'm not about me, from me, I should say. And I'm like, what the hell am I going to say about Alice in Wonderland or Lewis Carroll that hasn't been said? Fortunately for me, I was definitely slightly more adventurous than I am now, but only slightly. I head to a bar and I meet this girl with a Gorgon tattoo, and I'm like, okay. I meet her. She's cute. Unfortunately, plays for the other team, but still very cute. Awesome human being. In all seriousness, she is a very talented person in her own right, and I'm really looking forward to seeing her do more incredibly artistic, talented individual. And I was really fortunate even to know her as I do now. My nickname for her is the Shadow Slayer, because I made Medusa the Slayer of Shadows in my story. And thanks to her, I came up with this great take on Alice. I don't think ever been done before. Alice is Pandora. She opens the box, and a Cheshire cat inhabits her. And then she has to read, in the first book, Alice Zero, she has to recover who she is and what her purpose is. And this is a prologue to Alice 1. And Alice 1 is when the book's going to appear a little differently than Zero. Zero is, if you read my epic poetry with The Watcher, Storm Dancer, Wandering God, this is going to be a clean, epic poem, because that was what was originally requested. Also, it's a really fun story. I loved writing the interactions between the cat and Alice. It was such a hoot. And I'm really excited. I got somebody by the name of Mackenzie Carr to illustrate the book, and I was completely blown away how good she was. Unbelievable. It was a super fun experience. I was so hoping to have a date done for this. I do know it's going to be March-ish. Somewhere in March, it's going to come out. That's the first book. And then a few months down the line, I'm going to release my first novel, which is The Cloud Diver. I did this completely backwards. The Cloud Diver for me was originally done when I was in IFWA. When I was in IFWA, it's my first book. I was like, I'll submit something, and I hadn't written it yet, but I kind of knew what I wanted to write. I had it in my head. I was like, this would be fun for this particular crew, and it was pretty fun for this particular crew, and I had a blast with the whole story. It was a lot of fun. A lot of hard lessons with the story too, in regards to beta readers and in regards to even friendships. But I'm really proud of the story, and everybody who worked on it did a really good job helping me make this the best book it possibly can be. That hopefully will be out in early summer. And somewhere in the fall will be my first graphic novel, which will be my homage to Seuss. I love Dr. Seuss. Dr. Seuss, to me, and this is if you listen to my conversations, is arguably the greatest graphic novelist of all time. I think Will Eisner, Jack Kirby, Dr. Seuss is the same conversation. I truly do believe that. So this book is kind of like my little homage to Seuss, because I'm slightly insane, and I decided to do this, and don't ask me why. I had this idea of doing the stick figure revolution. These stick figures, because I draw so terribly, would revolt on me because of how terrible I draw them. I thought it'd be a great story, and that's what I did. I did that story. I found a guy that really wanted to do it. He approached me to do it. Which is unusual. The other unusual thing about it is he disappeared for like a few years because of the work involved in this project. He painted every single picture in here and did an incredible job with it, actually. But now the story is pretty much done and set in stone, outside of maybe a couple tweaks here and there. That's going to hopefully be kickstarted before the year's out. That's going to be my third release. I truly think authors today need to be independent creators, and they are independent businesses. And you have to treat yourself like that kind of entity, even if you're working with a publisher, because today's game, I think, for the most part, relationships with publishers and relationships, I think, in business in general, have a shelf life. I'm not saying that you can't have a lifetime relationship with a publisher. You absolutely can. But there's going to be times when the publisher really, really values you, and there's going to be times when the publisher is telling you, maybe not right now. And it's just the nature of the business. It's up and down. Maybe today that Isaac Asimov book that was really big is not so big anymore. But maybe in a year, Asimov comes back in a huge way in the in the consciousness of readers. And that could happen tomorrow. You never know. Especially with the way the world today is, and we're talking about things like artificial intelligence. I mean, you never know. Like, that kind of thing might become a big deal again. You absolutely never, ever can say for certain. But that's the nature of the beast, right? And so you, as a creator, as an artist, as an author, as any kind, have to constantly find new ways to get yourself out there. And that's the other reason I'm doing a Patreon. That's the other reason I'm releasing books on my own right now. I want to create that standard for me, so that if and when I do work with publishers again, and I will work with publishers again, all shapes and all sizes, there are people I really, really, really want to work with. And hopefully they feel the same way. And, I'll pitch them something that they'll really like, and I'll do it. But I will never stop doing things independently either. I think there has to be an ebb and a flow with that. And I do feel that all of us can find our niche in our home. But that's the other thing about this Patreon. This is about me doing the day-to-day, constantly doing writing, constantly doing exploration, constantly putting out the work for everyone to see. I believe my work is valuable, and I believe my work is good, and that's what this is about. That's where I'm at. That's where I'm going. And there's lots of other cool things happening this year. I have a project with Joe Compton I can't quite talk about yet. It's going to be a lot of fun. You should definitely look at Go Indie now. Joe Compton is, without a doubt, a genius. He's going to run. He's taken over, man. He's running his own network. He's covering cool people. He's doing a lot of amazing things, and I'm really looking forward to working with him. Marnie Young, this might not happen this year, but I have a project I really want to do with her. Marnie Young, the audio sorceress. You should listen to that conversation. She's amazing. She's fun. I really enjoyed doing my stuff, and we talked about chocolates. It's a great conversation by default, because seriously, how can you fuck up chocolate? One. Finally, I have a graphic novel concept with Beth Wagner. I'm not going to go too much into it, other than to say is I got some really exciting stuff coming up for 2020, and I'm going. Like I said, this is my opportunity to do creative things, and I'm taking the swing at the bat. I should talk about my next few appearances too, because that's not just going to be. It's going to be me doing some different things. I'm going to be bringing my board game with me to the Emerald City Comic Con. I'm going to be there as a professional for the first time. Thank you, podcast, for saying I'm a professional and stuff. But also, when I'm in Vancouver, we'll be doing the same thing. I'm going to be creating an environment where I'm just doing my thing, and that's my goal for the first half of this year, is just to establish myself as this entity. People know me as a podcaster, but I want to be known as more as a creator, as someone that's doing creative things in writing, board games, comics, podcasting. That's what I'm doing, and that's what this platform is all about. And I hope you guys will take part in it. I really, really do. Like I said, this is not quite a normal episode. This is a shorter episode than I normally do for that reason. But I'm nervous. I'm scared. but in a good, like a good scare. Like I said, the next year I figure is going to be establishing this paradigm, whatever this paradigm is, and I'm looking forward to the challenge. I'm not interested. I still have some big goals with the podcast. I'm not talking about here just yet. I still have some goals with my writing. I'm not talking about here just yet, but I'm really hoping to get established this year. I'm really hoping that I keep moving forward and keep moving in the direction of my dreams. I've been chasing my dreams since I was 13. I have not stopped. I have starved. I have paid some huge prices. I've had some amazing triumphs and happenstances and accidents, and I've been very fortunate, good and bad, to have the people that have been in my life through those times. Even the people that can't stand me. Honest to God, I think those are ones I'm oddly thankful for the most. You know, not because I want to prove them wrong, ha ha ha, but I learned an awful lot about myself when I did that. And that's kind of where I'm at. I'm super stoked, Oh, this reminds me. Starting next week, I will be officially sponsored by Words and Pictures Comics. There will be giveaways on the podcast in regards to graphic novels. I'm going to definitely talk to you about visiting stores, deals, all that stuff is going to be things starting next week. I'm really stoked. I'm really happy to be partnered with them. They're one of my favorite things. I love comics. I just love comics. And I love that this sponsorship is happening. And also I should speak out here and thank Another Dimension Comics for also their support. They're not sponsoring me at this point in time. And then they may or may not in the future. I have no idea. But they've also been a shop that I've established a great relationship, and they have been nothing but supportive of everything I've done. So Another Dimension, thank you very much. Words and Pictures, thank you very much for going in on this and trusting me. This is going to be a really fun ride. I got a lot of cool things coming up, a lot of cool things I'm doing. And so in this episode 15, I hope you're as excited as I am. And I want to thank you, the listener, for making a lot of this possible. I appreciate it. I really, really do. And that will do it for this episode of Just Joshing. Thank you for exploring this time travel past, and let's go to the future from here on in. So this, for the last time, I'm going to do it just like this. If you want to support the podcast, you can do so in a number of different ways. You can subscribe to the podcast. Podomatic, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play. I am on every player known to man. You can definitely show up, subscribe, leave comments, reviews. Appreciate that very much. Spread the word that this podcast is going out and is out there. Number one. Number two, my books, The Watcher, Storm Dancer, Wandering God, MirrorWorldPublishing.com. Check them out. I'm also on Amazon, Kobo, anywhere books can be sold, like brick and mortar electronically. You can find my books, buy them, leave a review, say awesome things. I appreciate it. Number three, my YouTube channel is Joshua Penteleresco. And number four, my Patreon page launches this Friday. You can support the podcast that way starting this Friday. I cannot wait. All right, guys, that's it for episode 15. Thanks for listening. I'll talk to you guys soon.
Josh.